Здравствуйте, добро пожаловать. Брухим абаим, шалом, Эдуард Якубов, президент HIT.
Очень приятно.
Я безмерно рад вашему визиту.
Я тоже рад.
Тем более, что мы еще с вами коллеги.
Да?
Я математик, преподник. Please, you're welcome. Holoní Institute of Technology. It's a great pleasure and honor to host you here this day, our activity in HIT. Miss Orna.
Although we are Christian, so I complained to the president of Academy of Sciences. I said to make to the point is tragedy was, of course, we suffered, but the future, of course, is with technology. Quite an advanced technology and science for reasons. So in 2 words, it physically will be something like a compound, a small city, signed with more than a dozen companies.
Your Excellency, Dr. Armեն Սարգսյան, President of Armenia, it's a great honor for me, both personally and professionally, to welcome you to HIT, Holonì Institute of Technology. Both of our nations share similar history, mourning and remembering the unbearable loss of millions in the Holocaust and the Armenian genocide. Yet, we still remember. We will remember these tragic pages of our histories. We truly appreciate your arrival in Israel with other 41 world leaders to mark the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau.
Thank you, dear professor, and good morning, and very happy to be here. I feel I'm home because university is a home. First, I would like to thank for this wonderful, for me, invitation to be here, and I would like to start by continuing what you, professor, was saying, that there is so much common in the fate of our 2 nations. I think we're both very, very old. We clearly have historically, where our homeland was. We suffered in order to keep our homeland and culture and identity. We are Christian. We're the oldest Christian state in the world, but the Armenian Apostolic Church is different from all the other churches in the world. It's a national church as well. We both lost our statehood for hundreds of years. We regained it recently. And of course, we both suffered huge human tragedy. In 1915, the Armenian genocide that has destroyed 1.5 million of Armenians and has destroyed Armenian communities in Ottoman Empire, created a huge diaspora for us, and of course the Holocaust. And that was and is the main reason why I'm here today, to show my and my nation's respect to the memory of those that perished, to the nation that has the strength of, like the phoenix, come back from ashes, and showing that to everybody that you and we are nations that are proving that life is much more stronger than death. And there's no way anybody in this world can dream thinking about us, about death. They better think about life. Well, I think on the political side, the history side, I should stop here because we don't have much time. And one of my aims visiting here is also to create a bridge. Somehow, somehow the bridge between Armenian Jewish scientists that was very, very strong back in Soviet Union. I was born in Soviet Armenia, got my education, further degrees in Armenia and Soviet Union and Russia, then traveled, one of the rare guys that was allowed to travel abroad. I was working at Cambridge for 2 years, 84, 85, and then in America and so on. But one thing that, and I come from a school, which was the Soviet School of Theoretical Physics. And I'll share with you, you haven't been there. I'm coming from the past. The Soviet School of Theoretical Physics, I would say, was the champion of the world. It was. I think when we were proud of that because there were giants and there was a system how to teach educational system. If there were fantastic books were written by Richard Feynman that I always enjoyed reading. I still enjoy reading them now because the language of this genius is not only the greatest simplifier of mathematical and theoretical language, but someone that knew how to tell the most complex things in a simple way. And I learned from him that if you really understand the complex story, if you really understand, then you can tell it to a 7-year-old boy or a girl or a boy that has logic. You can explain to them theory of relativity in this or that form if you really understand it yourself and you know how to tell that. And as you know, Feynman created the famous Feynman diagrams. I'm one of those students that were doing calculations of elementary particle processes, basically using the old system, having pages and pages and pages of calculating integrals. Then the genius comes and says, no, you just draw some diagrams. They're called Feynman diagrams. So back in Soviet Union, there were so many Armenian scientists working in Moscow, Leningrad, and in Armenia as well, and also Jewish ones. And when I was a student, we had a lot of Jewish students because back in the 1970s, the anti-Semitism in Soviet Union was quite strong, and students of Jewish origin were not allowed to go to the best universities in specific faculties, so they used to come to Armenia. And after our independence, somehow we lost, because a lot of those who were in Armenia of Jewish origin, they came to Israel as well. So I think I'm here also to try to bridge it, to open a new page, to start it. But before to start it and page it, let's think how we are going to do, what sort of research we are going to do in the future. But in order to think about the future technology and our place there, probably it's the best to think about how the world will look like. Let's say in 5, 10, 20 years' time. I will try to come up with 1 or 2 ideas. It's not complete, it's just haphazard, and it doesn't show you the full picture, but just probably will give feelings that you already have. Well, if you look until 1950s, the population of this planet was around 2.5 billion. And it was growing a couple of percentage per year. Not much. But from 1950s up to now, it's going up. Phenomenon which is interesting because we are becoming a planet with 10 or more billion people living together. Number 2, which is important, is if you ask, well, not probably here. When doing research in mathematics, physics, science, technology, everything looks more or less okay. But when you ask politicians or you ask economists, I'm coming from Davos here, and there are a lot of people are lost. So what's happening? There's so much uncertainty. How the world is going to develop? Politicians are not making the right decisions. Where is going to be the Middle East? Confrontation between different nations and so on. How the economy is going to run? I mean, the great investment banking system has disappeared. So there are more questions than answers, and the classical answers, they don't work. So there is a confusion. Only you meet at places like Davos, if a politician is very, very positive and he speaks with energy, people think, he is running a political campaign for re-election. That is why he is sort of a positive. Otherwise, he will be very negative, that saying everything is uncertain, difficult, and so on. Where does it come from? Let me give you a specific way that I look at it. I have the feeling if we go back 100 and 120, 30 years, go back, when the world was dominated by classical mechanics. And then, as physicists, people started finding phenomena that they couldn't explain. Well, it was more or less the same situation. There were a lot of phenomena that classical physics, the physics of great Isaac Newton couldn't explain. So there was a confusion, a big confusion. What's going to happen? Are we at the end of science, technology? What happened then, as usually happens, geniuses were born, and the name of these geniuses you know better than anyone here in this institute, starting from Albert Einstein and going to the old creators of quantum mechanics that said simple things. In order to explain this phenomenon, you have to change your approach. In order to explain this phenomenon, you have to change your logic. In order to explain this, you have to change your philosophy. The moment you change it, everything is explainable. The moment you change it. But it's completely different, because if you know quantum mechanics, I mean, it's not about just if you have to go from position A to B, there's a path, there's a formula or a product that describes this. In quantum mechanics, it's completely different. And you have the principle of uncertainty and many other things. We start thinking in the logic and philosophy of probability. And you are bringing together things that were never together, that were contradictory. Okay? So in order to understand what was happening in quantum physics, you had to change yourself completely, your philosophy, your thinking, your logic, your approach, your mathematics that you were using. Because quantum mechanics use completely different mathematics than the classical mechanics. But the moment you change yourself, the moment you change your philosophy and logic, the sky is the limit. And the sky was the limit for science. The sky was the limit for scientific exploration. And what we have discovered was phenomenal in less than 100 years. And it was phenomenal as a scientific discovery. I don't want to go through it, but it was also phenomenal also for technology. Whatever we have today, on this or that way, and whatever we will have in the next 10, 20, 30 years, we owe to the giants of quantum mechanics. Fly to the space, discovering the energy of nuclear power for good or for bad, because everything works in the hands of humans. It can work for good or for the bad. The telephone that we have with us is also a part of that. And that is changing, it has changed our world. So I came to the telephone. So what is the telephone? It's a means of communication. We are human. Imagine our lives without telephones. I was there. One of you, some of you, probably don't remember even that there was a life with a mobile phone. And our children, grandchildren will live in a completely different world. They will be said, what? You didn't have this? How were you surviving? Well, we humans are born without any communications. I think our first communication to the world is our mother. No, it's our mother. She's feeding us, she's teaching us, she's the messenger from us to the world and from the world to us, and so on and so forth. And then we start learning very slowly. Humans are species that really don't have, when they are born, ability and way of communicating. So we have to rely on our... But the new children are ahead of normal humans. Because, well, I have my grandchildren from age 2, they have double life. They have the life of normal material world and their life which is virtual. And they learn probably a lot from the virtual life. Not only what was mother, father, or everybody is teaching them, but also from the virtual world. So live 2 lives. And with the time, the virtual life becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And that virtual life is completely different from the material life, because the speed of communication is the speed of light. So we are becoming individuals that have the communication over the speed of light. And communication or connectivity is a key factor. Very important. Because before we were individuals that the bigger world didn't know about us. We were a classical body. What was inside didn't matter. And this body, a town, a city, a nation, a state, was moving according to the classical rules. Okay? Nobody was bothering what was inside, and then what was inside was working as an integral, classical. And this new world is different. Everybody knows what's inside. This inside is not in a bottle. It is in a bottle, but it communicates with the world. And excuse my analogy that I will tell you, when I look at us humans today, we more and more look like elementary particles. That elementary particles that are discovered, because we know who they are, what sort of particles, we more or less understand the way they communicate, because in physics we know how they are communicating with the forces like the weak, the strong, the electromagnetic, the gravitational. We know how we communicate with each other. And that communication, like in quantum mechanics, is with the speed of light. And the number of us, how many we are, is more than 10 billion. And will become bigger and bigger. So we're becoming, excuse my analogy, we're becoming quantum objects. Where this world is becoming a place where we are quantum particles in a huge world, and we can communicate with a specific way. So now, why I'm saying that? Because if we want to understand how the new world is going to work, if we want to understand what's going to be the future of industry, economy, business, politics, we better start thinking in a different way. We better change our philosophy. We better change our logic, the way we look at the things in this new world. We better think how politics will be run in the future. We better think how business will be run in the future. And of course, you, especially those who are behind there or upper or in the future, than me here, know better that it's going to be different. You go back 20 years ago, what, 50 years ago, tell anyone that two guys without a proper university degree will get into somewhere, into their garage or their grandfather's or father's home and create something about become multi-billionaire. People will laugh on you. Not Richard Feynman, because I met him, he was genius, he was looking to the future. But ordinary people will laugh on you. But this is the new world that everybody lives now, and every young man, be that here, in New York, in Moscow, Yerevan, or even in Ulaanbaatar, thinks about being a startup creator. Now, every young boy and girl that's starting from age 13 writes music without knowing notes. The computer helps you. You have the taste, you have the talent. Wants to start a startup because they believe in the power of idea. They really believe that this new environment, in this new environment, they can succeed. So this world is different. It's different in many ways. And I can give you, for example, another hour or two, which we don't have it, about how it will be different. I will just give you some hints of it. Politics, how it's run. How the classical politics was run. Classical politics was run in a form when there were ideas, ideologies, and they would be divided into left, into right, into liberal and non-liberal, and then people were organized in political parties, what they believe more into the left ideology or the right ideology, and the political parties were getting together in an organized form, going into elections. After elections, they were having a government, and the government was being sort of reporting to the public 60, 70 years ago, once in a while, between one election and the other election. Sometimes a great president was finding a new technology which was called radio and addressing his people through radio, having communications. Or another great American president was finding out there is a television. so you can address people through television. Now a lot of president has found out that there is Twitter, or there is Facebook. So you don't need once in a month or once in 3 months, but you speak to people every day. And the political events happening are of quantum behavior. I can bring you a lot of examples of what is happening in the world, that a small, not very important event starting somewhere, growing like a nuclear reaction, starting with a high energy particle hitting an atom, then other particles are created. These particles are hitting other atoms, and you have a chain reaction. It works now. It worked in my country. After my inauguration, 2 weeks after, when the former president wanted to become the prime minister, there was a movement that started 10 guys walking from the north of Armenia on the road to the south. Then 10 became 100, 100 became 1,000. We ended up 300,000-400,000 people on the square in Yerevan, and the prime minister had to resign. And that was in 2 weeks. No political party, no declaration, nothing. Communications, Facebook, an environment where people were unhappy, so you have to have critical mass in order to get nuclear reaction, and the process that started there. Look how much entertainment and politics are merged. Politics was always a part of entertainment, and the other one, politicians were using entertainment starting from old times, the Romans, the great gladiators. They were the part of entertainment to people when there was not enough bread. But now it's different. Politics and entertainment are merging together. There are so many entertainers that are becoming politicians. Think about it. I don't want to give you examples. If you don't find, let me know. And there are so many politicians who are acting that entertainers. And of course, because this is interactive, it becomes very, very attractive. Because it's one thing watching Game of Thrones. So you come home, you put on on your computer and you watch the Game of Thrones. Like, nice fairy tale, beautiful. But a real political event, when you know that you write in Facebook your opinion and it has direct effect on what is happening, you are one of the producers of this game of maybe Thrones or maybe something else. You are a partner. You feel fine. In the evening you come and you write and your opinion is taken care of. If there are 1,000 people or 10,000 people writing the same thing, right or fake, it has huge impact on politics. So, integration of different activities. Integration comes to where you are, science. It's more and more impossible to develop just research and develop this pure science. Because we are so close, because industry has come so close that industry is saying what they want to do. But somehow, I believe that we are entering a new era, which is a new era of Renaissance. Because individual is so powerful now, because of its connection, because individual has become quantum, that your activity, you merge everything what you do. You merge your research, learning process, with your research, and that research is very close to industry. And at the end of the day, you're also merging your life. You live one life with this art, music, your education, and your research and your business in one. So individually, you will start living like people, great people in the Renaissance that were Leonardo. He was not only a painter, he was not only a sculptor, he was a great scientist, he was a great engineer. So the time of Renaissance is coming, and it's coming for you. So I hope all of you will enjoy your lives. I wish I could come back in 50 years' time to see what's happening. Well, maybe the next generation that will live not in average 60 or 80 years, but more 120, I think people will realize what's happening. And of course, it changes dramatically many things, including how you teach. What is the system of education? I mean, you go to school. these young girls and boys, from age of 2, living in virtual life. And they have got their first lesson with the iPad, and they don't need to learn the alphabet in order to communicate, because they are doing much more basic, which is the icons of hieroglyphs. So there were 5,000 years ago, alphabet was created, and we lived 5,000 years with the dominance of words, with the letters. Now we're going back before that, when icons, be that in ancient Egypt or here or somewhere, were more important than the letters. Icons. They find their icons very easily. They don't know anywhere. They are 2 years old, 3 years old. They find their way in that virtual world quicker than their grandparents. So how do you teach them? How to take them to school for 10 or 12 years? And every day, 6 or 8 hours, forcing them to sit every class 45 minutes, when they have so much information. The amount of information that they get going at home or just playing on their iPad is phenomenal. So we humans have to start thinking again how we teach our children. A lot of these children are so energetic that in the West, and especially in America and in Europe, they are saying, oh, no, this is not normal. I think we have to give them pills because the boy or the girl cannot stand. And they are even created special names for these talented boys and girls, what probably you know. And they give them pills in order to relax them. No. These are children from the future. They think while they run. In order to think, they also need to run as well. So giving children to calm them down to sit 45 minutes, I remember myself how difficult it was for me to sit 45 minutes if you are even 1 year ahead in knowledge. Somehow when I was small, my father taught me to play chess when I was 3, 4, and I was reading there, and I loved mathematics, so it was boring. I was considered as someone that doesn't behave. He's the best student, but that doesn't behave well. So how can you sit when you know whatever the teacher is telling? After that 5th, 6th form, they were saying, get out from the class. Okay, you'll get your mark, but to get out, go to the lab or somewhere. Now there are millions of these sort of children coming with huge amount of information, but you have to teach them how to process this information, how to be innovative, how to make something useful from that. Not just 10 years or 12 years putting them in a classroom saying, don't move, behave. Well, you will learn how to behave when you go to the army. They will teach you, both here and in army, and you'll be very well behaved, and that's fantastic. But then you are 16 or 18 or 20. But when you are 5 or 6, I think every child, every young person has a talent. And one great thing for educational system should be how to find the talent. One has a talent of making a chair, the other one has a talent of making music. Lucky him, because I always was jealous. I pray God when I'm next time born, I would like to be a composer. I was jealous of Bach, I was jealous of Mozart. I'm still jealous. They are creating timeless, they are just direct channels to God, writing these wonderful things. But every child has a talent. So one of the ways helping in education is to help each individual quantumly to find your talent and to support that talent. Because never kid yourself. This is for Moria. Never do things that you don't like. Because the one thing which is valuable for you, except your love, your family, your parents, is your time. That's an absolute value. So never spend your time in doing something that you don't. Find yourself. There is a talent. It can be a talent of writing, or it can be a talent of reading, a talent of talking, or a talent of listening, or a talent of anything. And I would love to make a bridge to recreate what was there some 40, 50 years ago when I was sharing a lot of my time in Moscow, in academic area, in the dormitory with my Jewish friends, and having these crazy discussions and working together, sharing not only food, ideas, inviting them to Armenia. So I'm also here to invite you to Armenia. It's a beautiful country. It's really beautiful country. We're like you, we don't have oil. But we're lucky we have water, the main ingredient. And we have water 5-6 times more water than we are using. So we have to learn from you, because you are managing your water better than us. So there are things that we can learn from you. There are things that probably we can teach you. But let's discover that. So one of the first steps would be if we can start knowing each other. Not virtually. Virtuality is fantastic. You can go Google Armenia president, there'll be a lot of rubbish there. Maybe a lot of some real things as well, because we're living in a world that millions of questions are not answered. And this is a new world. Everybody speaks that this is a world of data. Everybody speaks about the success of those small states that are successful because they have, let's say, like a port. And they are a center of a trade. The tankers come in, tankers go out. The new ocean that will be important and powerful is going to be the ocean of data. And I want to make landlocked Armenia an international port in the ocean of data and information and science and technology. This is my dream. And in order to do that port, I'm here, a country that has a lot of sailors, a lot of captains, and ordinary marine specialists of the ocean of data, information, and science, and say, let's work together and try to do something that can be useful for you, for us, and for the world. Because there are so many questions. I really mean, when I was in a car, we were speaking, coming here, about the future, not only the data, but an idea. What is the value of an idea? Does it have commercial value? Can you protect it? Will there be another huge market of ideas? Can you regulate that? If anybody has answers, I'll be happy to hear. Just a new market, not only of data is fine, but the idea, which is the next phase. Is there be a global market for ideas? People just produce them like, I don't know, any other good? Can you regulate that market? Because idea is going to become more and more important, because the quality that you will need in the future is not only a number of things that we have learned by heart and you carry it with you, because there will be clouds and clouds that will keep the data for you. It is the ability of being someone that can create something new out of the complexity. Each of you could or should become Professor Richard Feynman in your specialty. Go from the complexity to the simple, which is beautiful. That is what you needed. And also, as a businessman or scientist, you, at this university, this nation, has the quality that we also have, survivors. Very important. Because in the new world, things are going to change very quick. Success will be quick because the innovation goes very, very strong. I'm against the idea that we are going through the fourth industrial revolution. No. Because there will be fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. I call it R-evolution, rapid evolution. That's a term from my future book, which is coming up. Because the revolutions will be so quick, and one after another, so we have to adapt ourselves. Adapt to success, adapt to failure. Okay? Everything changes quick. So there are so many qualities that you need to train in yourself in order to be successful in the 21st century. The century of artificial intelligence and quantum life. And one last sentence from me to you message is, 100 years ago, humans, we, great humans, have found that nature is not classical, it's quantum. I'm here to say that I not only, as one of their humble students, I not only agree with them, but I have the feeling that not only the nature, but we as a human society, which is a part of nature, is again not classical, it's quantum. And you are at the gates of this new quantum world. And it's wonderful and it's fascinating, and it's worth to spend your time and life finding your way and understanding this new quantum world. Thank you very much.
Quantifying the politics. So this is probably something that I've never heard before. I am wondering, what do you think in 10 years can we reach the singularity that everybody is talking about?
I mean the physical singularity,
yes, of course.
Or the human singularity.
Professor Hanan Kaminsky, welcome to our gallery.
Thank you.
Professor Derabi, the Dean of the Faculty of Design, the head of the master program, and very interesting and very energetic Orna.
I'm the manager of the gallery.
Is the management of gallery and the whole aspects of design and the institute.
Excellent.
Okay. This is a model of nanotube. Okay. We have a very nice lab in producing nanotubes. Okay. And this year, Professor Alazak published the collective, for example, helium and another aspects of this. This is
As a matter of fact, which combines design, technology, and instructions. Nice to meet you. Yeah. This is one of the unique faculties how we train our students.
Hello, Your Excellency. It's so nice to meet you here. I'm Dr. Dan Cohen-Weiss, and I'm affiliated with the Faculty of Instructional Technologies. Some would say that we are the best faculty.
yes, not just in the HIT, but in the Israel.
And today I have the honor to present our cutting-edge research focused on exploitation of a humanoid robot for the sake of scaffolding an instructional process. So.
What?
He wants.
Yes. Yeah?
Together we will succeed.
Definitely.
Yes.
The government